My name is Sanjay Kalra. I am an endocrinologist who works at Karnal in Haryana. And it's a matter of pride for me, pleasure as well, that I have completed 25 years in endocrinology in the service of Indian endocrinology this year.
How does Imeglimin fit into your regular practice with the current landscape of T2DM treatment options? Kindly share your experience.
Imeglimin is a very nice drug actually. It can fit in everywhere, all the way from first line up till nth line. As first line therapy, I use it along with metformin or along with metformin and one more drug in patients with poorly controlled diabetes. I can also use it as second line to intensify therapy where existing first line therapy, maybe monotherapy or dual therapy is not working. So I can use it for initiation, I can use for intensification as second line or third line, and I can also use as interchange. Interchange means that an existing drug is not safe or is not tolerated very well, so then I can interchange with Imeglimin. This is one area in which it fits. The second area is in which where it fits is where we are giving insulin to patients, maybe basal insulin, maybe premixed, and the injection is not working. Now we want to intensify insulin therapy, but that means increasing the number of doses of insulin, and patient is not very keen on that. In such cases also we can add Imeglimin.
In what specific patient populations do you see the greatest benefit of using Imeglimin?
The drug is beneficial across all type 2 diabetes patients, but specifically based upon its mode of action. One is patients with a high 1 hour postprandial or high early postprandial glucose. Imeglimin is very effective. And secondly, it is effective in patients with high fasting glucose. People who say that my fasting glucose is very high, but postprandial rise is not all that much. In these patients also, it is more effective. So 2 groups so far, high 1 hour postprandial and high fasting glucose. Second, it is effective in patients who complain of hypoglycemia or symptoms of hypoglycemia with other drugs. It is also effective in patients who complain of GI disturbance with other drugs like metformin. So if we were to put all this together, from an efficacy perspective, when we want to control isolated fasting hyperglycemia, or we want to control early postprandial rise of glucose, that's one. And second is where other drugs are not well tolerated because of GI disturbance or because of hypoglycemia or maybe hypoglycemia-like symptoms.
How does Imeglimin compare to other hypoglycemic agents in terms of safety and efficacy? Kindly share a real-world case if you have.
In terms of safety, it is excellent. It is one of the safest drugs to use and one of the best tolerated. You don't even need to worry too much about renal impairment because you can give it, of course, in a dose of 500 mg OD, even if the EGFR is 30 or less. So from safety and tolerability perspective, excellent results. From an efficacy perspective, actually it has never been studied as monotherapy. So we are not very sure, but in general, maybe the efficacy would not be as good as that of sulfonylureas, but it would be on par with DPP-4 inhibitors or with pioglitazone.
In recent time, Imeglimin sustained release formulation with Indian study has been launched in India.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on that?
This is a welcome development because the sustained release preparation allows you to use it once daily if you wish. So for example, in patients who have isolated fasting hyperglycemia, I use 1000 sustained release Imeglimin at night. It is also safer from a GI perspective. So patients who are not doing very well on Imeglimin 500 twice a day or 1000 twice a day because of GI disturbance, though I would admit these are very, very few, maybe 1 out of 100. In these also, sustained release preparation can be used.
How does the mitochondrial targeting mechanism of Imeglimin influence its clinical use?
This is important and it's very important actually because it helps us explain to the patient why we are giving the medicine. So we tell the patient that your body is made up of various organ systems. Each organ system is made up of different cells. Each cell has got a powerhouse or an engine. The engine is the mitochondrium. Now, the same way, let's say you were to drive a car or use another vehicle, motor, and the engine is not very effective or not very efficient, you don't get good results. Similarly, it happens in diabetes that the mitochondrium becomes a bit weak, and Imeglimin energizes the mitochondria of our cells in the liver, in other parts of the body. It energizes and makes the mitochondria more efficient so that the cells are able to burn fuel, they are able to burn glucose and bring down our glucose levels. So this is how we explain to the patient, and actually this is what happens in type 2 diabetes.
What are the key safety and efficacy findings from clinical evidences on Imeglimin that clinicians should be aware of?
We should be aware that the drug is very safe and very well tolerated. In very few patients, like I said, maybe 1% or so, you might have a GI disturbance, which is usually mild and transient, and which will reduce further if we use a sustained release preparation. So GI disturbance may be there. There is no risk of hypoglycemia at all. And even in renal impairment, hepatic impairment, mild to moderate, the drug can be used very safely.
Do you believe that Imeglimin has the potential to change the future landscape of diabetes treatment?
Yes, of course. Let us be honest. No drug alone can change the entire landscape, whether it is GLP-1 receptor agonists or insulin or Imeglimin. But put together, we can actually improve glucose control for the vast majority of our fellow citizens. And I think that is where Imeglimin has a very strong role to play. It helps us achieve safe and well-tolerated glucose control in many people who would not have been able to do that with the existing therapy. So that way it does help us improve our quality of care.
Any other key points or take-home message you would like to share apart from this?
Imeglimin is a safe drug to use, well tolerated. So whenever you are worried about safety, tolerability, the patient is not getting his or her test done at screening, not getting the test done for monitoring, not able to come back to you for 3 or 6 months, then this is the safest drug to use. There would be very, very few patients where you can use it in monotherapy. One example would be patients with renal impairment, severe renal impairment, but otherwise usually it will be used along with metformin or along with metformin plus one other oral drug. It can also be used along with insulin. So if you're struggling with insulin use, the dose is going up but you're not getting good results, then also Imeglimin is a good drug to use.